Only 11% of podcasts will make it past episode number 50. 90% will not make it even past third episode. Today, I want to give you 10 reasons why podcasts are failing and why is it so hard to grow. There's so many podcasts out there. Everybody have an idea. Everybody wants to be on camera and share their knowledge, interview people, but why is it so hard? Why so many people cannot even get through 3 episodes? If this video brings any value to you, please don't forget to like it, subscribe, and if you want us to make more on this topic, maybe about the setup, how to do perfect podcast studio, comment below. We'll be reading our comments, answering them in the future videos. My name is Dmitry Lupinski. I have several podcasts. One of them, Roofing Insights, I've done over 6 years. I've interviewed over 100 people, and I absolutely love podcasts. It's very, very unique way to create content. And in today's world with the TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Shorts, YouTube Shorts, it's absolutely amazing opportunity to create long-form content and recycle it in a short form clips to distribute it through all social media. So podcast has great opportunity, but you have to be very careful how you do it. Here's my top 10 tips from observing podcasts in my circles that they are folded. What did I learn doing a podcast and what did I see people did wrong? Number one, you have to find your niche. The narrower the niche, the better the podcast. Topic does not matter. Some people are going for everything. You want to be next Joe Rogan. You want to interview politicians and you want to talk about everything. It's impossible to grow a podcast when you don't have identity. Even if you're in a certain industry, in that industry, find a niche. For example, if you're in the roofing industry, don't go after everything roofing. Be a residential contractor. Maybe you talking only about storm restoration, how to work with insurance companies. Maybe you're a commercial roofer. People are tuning in for specific knowledge and for specific criteria. So if you are niche podcast, it'll be much easier for you to find sponsors. It'll be much easier for you to find true experts. So if you are in real estate, you will find the best real estate agents to talk about real estate. If you're a roofer, you'll find roofers. You get the idea. If you're in the aquarium business, you will find amazing people who just specialize in aquariums. If you're a car dealer, you will find your audience, you will build the audience, and you will be able to monetize the audience. It's those who go after everything, don't have identity, who usually fail. Mistake number 2, forcing your podcast on audience, promoting it too hard in the beginning, before you actually created value, before you have amazing episodes, right away asking people and annoying all your friends and family and following maybe from other industries why they should follow your podcast. If you create good content, people will absolutely subscribe and follow. Now, I have to be careful with that because there's nothing wrong with distributing your podcast, but quality of the content comes first. So many make this mistake when they only did 1-2 episodes and they immediately start forcing it everyone. And listen, it's okay to have underrated podcasts. I have this all the time. Just last week, I shared my podcast with Larry Gineski, and number one comment I'm getting on that podcast is, wow, this was so good. This is the most underrated channel. Yes, you might be getting only 1,000-2,000 views or plays on YouTube or whatever platform you share your podcast. Even if you have amazing guests, even if the content is good, sometimes it's not about the views, it's about the quality. You will be discovered. Give it a time. Be patient. Even if you have 50, 60, 70 views in the beginning, it's totally fine. Be underrated. Do not force it down people's throat. Good content will get recognized on social media. People will share it once they discover it, but you can't build it within the first couple of weeks. And that brings me to mistake number 3. Do not monetize it too early. You have to bring the value first. So many people start the podcast only to ask money from the sponsors. Listen, you don't have the audience yet. You did not bring any value to anyone yet. It takes time to build a brand. It takes time, especially today, to build a podcast. What value do you bring to your vendor that you're asking money from if you only have 50, 60 subscribers? Zero. You don't have the audience yet. But what is your audience getting? They're getting ads. Ads are annoying. There's nothing wrong with monetizing podcast or YouTube channel or social media account. But first, you have to build the audience. Once you build the audience, let's say you have 100,000 subs, now you can do some sponsor deals. Your audience will forgive you because you brought so much value and they've seen so many free videos and free interviews. Of course, they will understand that you have to make money. But when you have your first podcast and you have 5 ads in it, it's just annoying. People are not going to make it to the end of the very first one. So you're losing your audience before you're even gaining it. Mistake number 4, not knowing your reason why. So many people start creating content, start turning cameras before they even brainstorm or ask themselves, why am I doing it? Why are you doing it? Why even create videos? You just like to talk, you like seeing yourself on a camera, you like the attention. Identify your reason why. Are you doing it because your business needs more exposure, because you want to become a media company? Are you doing it because you want to collaborate with other business owners? Are you doing it because you want to get better at public speaking and you want to get better at creating content? Are you doing it because your business needs more leads? Ask yourself, why are you doing it? Be very honest with the answer. That's going to be your reason why. You will remember that reason why next time where you don't get views or something's not going your way. Maybe when you start getting hate on your podcast. Recently, we have couple videos, couple short clips from our podcast that went viral for the wrong reasons. 600,000-700,000 views and people just roasting my guest. So when you have those situations, how are you going to deal with it if you don't know why you're doing it? Because if you don't know your reason why, first hater, first criticism, first controversy, you're going to fold and you're going to become a statistic and you're going to say, I don't want to do it no more. But if you know your reason why, you're going to keep going forward. Mistake number 5, I see a lot of people are doing is starting too fancy. Listen, once you build the audience, once you build a following, once you have 50, 100 episodes, once you have massive audience following you, you can become fancy. You can have slow motion shots, how you rent a nice Lambo or Mercedes-Benz. Someone opens the door for you, cool shots, slow motion, music videos. It all takes place. But if you want to be fancy in the beginning, no one cares. Mistake number 6, be cautious of long introductions and time wasting in podcast. Again, people are very selfish. They tune in, they're giving you their time. Attention span is very small. They're gonna screen the podcast within the first 20, 30 seconds, what the topic is, who the guest is, and they're gonna go on their business. They're gonna move on if they don't like it. So if you spend first 5 minutes of your podcast waiting for someone, talking about generic, doing long-winded introductions, like Dana White walked away other day from the podcast. Why do you think it happened? Because the host was praising him for the first 2-3 minutes. It was very awkward. And Dana's like, you know what? I'm out of here. The best tip I can give you, straight to the point, fight for every second from the very beginning. You start a podcast, tell me immediately what the podcast is going to be about. Who is your guest? How did you prepare for it? What are they going to learn? One of the best ways to start a podcast is actually giving them teasers, what's coming later. So teaser, on our podcast, usually anywhere from 30 seconds to 1 minute, you're going to give me a nice teaser. I'm going to hear a lot of sound bites. I'm going to be pumped for the energy that's coming my way, and I'll stick around if I'm interested in that topic. But on the opposite, if you start a podcast and it's like, hey, I'm Dmitry, we have a cool guest today, thank you for coming, and your energy is like this, I'm moving on. I don't have time for this. You ask for my time and you're not straight to the point, and I see the podcast usually 30 minutes to hour and a half, 2 hours. Man, is it going to be like that? Set the expectation from the first minute, and hopefully you can keep that tension all the way to the end of the podcast, and it's only going to get better and better because your retention rate, your view rate going to drop, and it's going to affect the algorithm on all the platforms if you only got them in the beginning and nobody actually watched it to the end. If you want a successful podcast, make sure you understand their retention rate and you keep them engaged through the entire podcast. That brings me to mistake number 7, not doing the homework. I've personally moved on from a lot of podcasts when I see the host asking in the beginning of the interview what his guest is doing. Like, what's the name of your company again? Like, literally, in the roofing business, we have a podcaster. He's no longer around. He's done, I don't know, like maybe 5-10 episodes and folded. And this is how he started. What's the name of your company? Well, if you did not do your research, why would I spend time listening to you, trying to get to know someone? You're not prepared. You're asking for my attention. I know the question's not going to be good. I know you have no idea who the person is in front of you is. You're not going to be able to call him out if he's a bullshitter. But what is it to watch? You are not interested in your guest. You did not do your homework, and now you want me just to listen for 2 people randomly talk. I do it on the planes. I do it all the time. I don't have time for it. Do your homework if your podcast is about interviewing interesting guests. I'll give you my formula, and you should have yours. I have usually about 30 to 40 questions. First 10 questions are usually about their history, their background, what my guests have done before. So I'm gonna study them. I'm gonna see their social medias, their companies, videos, whatever I can find on them, and I'm gonna ask them about their past. How did they arrive today to wherever they're doing? Second set of questions, another 10, 12 questions are about their current business. What are they doing today? How are they different? What's unique about that company? And last set of questions are usually about industry questions. Those are about news, about the industry trends, what's happening. So that's my formula. You can have 100 questions, you can have 10 questions, 5 questions, but have your formula, have your format so your audience knows what to expect and you have some kind of consistency. Questions obviously have to be different for every guest, but the formula of success for your podcast have to be, somewhat consistent from one episode to another. Joe Rogan has his formula, Lex has his formula. I follow so many podcasters out there and I absolutely love the genre, the interview. Everybody's a little bit different, but you know what to expect from each person. You know how he behaves, you know what kind of questions he usually asks, and that's what makes podcasts very interesting. People are very selfish. My time is very valuable. That's my biggest asset. That's your audience's biggest asset. You're asking people to invest time in you, tune into your message. What is it that you have to say? What do you want to share with them? And when you ask for attention and all you're doing is showing off how cool you are, how cool your studio is, how cool equipment you have, your business, nobody cares. Nobody cares about coolness of what you have. People are selfish and they tune in for what's there for them. That's number one problem that you have to solve. What do you have for them? What kind of value do you have? So now answer this question with me. You being cool on camera, you being fancy, you maybe like wearing something nice clothing, right? What value does it bring to them? Unless you want to motivate them and you're in the fashion design, it's a little bit different. But if you have generic podcast about generic topic in your industry, you're not fashion designers, you're not Kim Kardashian, why be fancy on camera? Why use cool shots to show off, I guess? You can do it a little bit later once you build the audience, but early on, it will churn off more people than it will attract. Next mistake is not promoting a podcast. I highly recommend promote it. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say that a lot of actors absolutely hate promoting movies because they're actors, they're stars. Why promote? We don't like sales. We don't like share our own work. There's nothing wrong with promoting podcasts. If you film great podcast, you owe it to your audience. How would people find that podcast? I follow a lot of people and I absolutely appreciate when I scroll down on Instagram and I see Joe Rogan posting, selfie with his guest. I'm like, oh, that's cool, rock. I want to watch it. And I go to his podcast or YouTube, Google, whatever, and I find that episode. Why? because we follow people not only on one platform. If you listen on YouTube, make sure you also share that podcast on Instagram, on Facebook. Maybe get creative. Maybe cut little shorts. Maybe that intro that you made for the podcast, share that in your story. Share it on the Facebook. Share it in some groups. Maybe even text it to people if you have big audience. Sometimes we even do email. So if I know I have 3,000-4,000 people following me and I interviewed industry giant, absolutely influential person, right? I want to make sure that everyone who follows me in industry will watch it. So I will do the email. I will share it on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere, because I know how important it is to share it. So YouTube algorithm will be like, hey, we showed it to so many people and so many people are interested and they actually watching more than half. Retention rate is great, but you can get none of that if you never shared, if you never told anyone about your podcast. So if your views initially are high, they're probably going to keep growing later. If your views are low, they probably will never grow and you're going to be frustrated. 20, 30 views, for some reason, a lot of people get discouraged by it and they stop. Listen, we all started with 0 subscribers and we all grew from there. You know, even Mr. Beast at one point he had 0. So now he has like, I don't know, 100 million. It doesn't matter. You're going to keep growing. Don't get discouraged by low views in the beginning. Last mistake that I see is make sure it's always quality over quantity. I see so many people start a podcast and they are chasing quantity. I see those social media posts like, hey, who should I have on my podcast? And I see those threads. Yes, you can get guests. Guests are not a problem. People used to go into podcasts, and right now I can probably have a line of 100 people who will come to my studio. I don't want them. I don't want a quantity. I want a quality. You want to find people who are the best for your audience, the most interesting person today. It's not just talking to anyone. It's not just interviewing anyone who wants to be interviewed, who wants to sell you something, who wants to get exposure and extra attention. It's what's good for your audience. Ask yourself, you're the expert. You have a specific niche. What's the best video you can make for your niche this week? Because if I follow you and I see one boring podcast, I'm like, I'm done. I'm not coming back to this guy alone. It's a very dangerous game to create boring content when you're a content creator. Because you might do 5 amazing episodes and then you have 1 or 2 very boring ones and people will be like, oh, this guy does not have it anymore. Now he's boring. I don't want to follow him anymore. His guests are pale. Like, no, done. And they're not going to come back even when you have someone good. So make sure every video you put out, every episode you put out, is well done, because one bad episode will have people unsubscribe, will tank your entire podcast. And lastly, bonus tip for you. Make sure you know what platform you're using. Very different platforms out there. Facebook versus Google versus Spotify are very different. You want to create content based on the platform. So if you are on YouTube, and YouTube is my favorite because for the rest of the times people will be able to find it. It's owned by Google, so search engine is amazing. If people, like, oftentimes I'll watch something on Instagram or TikTok, but I'm always coming to YouTube to find those clips later because I cannot find anything on Facebook and TikTok the same way. So know your platform. I know why so many are using Facebook, because Facebook views are skewed. Their algorithm is very gimmicky, if you will. If someone watches you for 3 seconds, Facebook will count it as a view. So I see why people are doing it on Facebook. But honestly, YouTube is superior to Facebook when it comes to podcasts. That's why Joe Rogan is there. But of course, there's other, podcast platforms that's, just for podcasts. iTunes, Apple Store, Spotify, and so on. But make a decision early on where you're going to air it. And you can definitely do Facebook and YouTube. And we've done Facebook podcasts many, many times. But again, just because you're getting views and more views on Facebook, how real or are those views? YouTube will tell you how it is. Numbers don't lie, people do. Do not lie to yourself. Facebook views oftentimes are not real views. Be careful with that platform if that's what you do. Now, there's nothing wrong with sharing shorter clips. YouTube is for long form content. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the rest of them are for shorter form content. So since we're talking about podcasts today, I don't want to trash Facebook. I use Facebook all the time, but I don't use it for long form content. People don't have attention span to watch it on Facebook. Now, if you go on live, a little bit different story, but I still would recommend YouTube, because even after you go live on Facebook later, it'll be harder to find. So those are my top 10 tips or mistakes. Comment below if you want me to make more videos on how to set up a podcast studio. If you need our help, my team actually specializes in the podcast videos, and I have unlimited video editing offer. We manage a lot of YouTube channels. We create a lot of videos every single day. If you want us to manage your podcast or to edit your videos, short, reels, ads, you name it, we do it. I'm gonna put my information below. If you need my help, maybe to set up a studio or come up with a strategy for your business, that's what we love doing here at Roofing Insights Marketing Fitness Program. We have program for everyone when it comes to content marketing. Content is marketing. Stop neglecting videos. If you need a coach, I would like to talk to you about a strategy, reach out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.